I know it sounds simple, but I bet maybe 1 to 5% make it. But I think people that don't make it aren't acting. They're talking, they're analyzing, but to be successful in anything that you do, you have to act, take the steps forward and do it.
Welcome everyone to the Road Less Traveled show. This is a show about people that were successful in a previous career and left that career to go down a different path. I'm your co-host, Richard Coyne.
And I'm your co-host, Bill Zahller.
On today's show, we have Stephanie Walters. Stephanie, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, Stephanie. Well, thank you for being on the Road Less Traveled show. Well, can you tell us a little bit about your former career and how long you were in that line of work?
Well, I started in insurance. My dad and my uncle came from a long line of insurance people. So right after college, I got a job as an adjuster, the claims adjuster, and that was for about 8 years. I did that. And then I started my own insurance agency about 16 years ago. I just recently kind of retired. I'm not sure what that looks like yet, but sold my agency in last year, actually. So, I love insurance.
What kind of insurance was it? Was it personal property?
Yeah, property and casualty.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's just like auto, home, life. Definitely not health. Health, you have to be, real specialized in that.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, then what path did you kind of semi-retired there? What have you transitioned to in your new career?
In 2016, I learned a lot about syndications, and then that's real estate investing with a group of people. And I'd never actually heard that term before. I was 45 at the time. And it was just like, people always talk about finding what they've been meant to do their whole life. And I felt like that's kind of how I felt. And so I just kind of started throwing myself into that profession. And I raise money now for my partner for his deals. So I'm a capital raiser, but I just don't, I just do it for one person.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
And it focused on, is any particular region you guys focus on or?
Florida. Yeah,
Okay.
Largely Florida, because that's where my partner has been located for the last 35 years. He's a commercial broker himself.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of assets are you? Value add, core plus? What do you guys?
Yep, value add. We have about 124 million assets under management. We've been working together since 2019.
Oh, great. Yeah. Very good. We enjoy the space also.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. Apartment buildings, right? Stephanie, apartment buildings, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Mostly value add apartments.
Okay.
We had one retail in there, which was interesting. We took that in 2019, so before COVID, and it's performed really well. But I think it's just, I'm sure you guys would agree that the markets are hugely important, and we saw that through COVID. Being in Florida was just a great pro-business market to be in.
Absolutely. Yeah. We deal in the pro-business states as well. Certainly, again, obviously we want to take care of our residents, but at the same point in time, the fact of the matter is that, a lease is a contract, and, we kind of expect the resident to honor their contract. And it includes paying rent. Wow, imagine that. So
exactly.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know how some places sustain an economy, with these such resident friendly laws that just make it impossible to do business as a landlord.
Yeah.
So anyway, Stephanie, from your insurance background, both before you had your own firm or maybe while you had your own firm, is there a funny story that you can share somewhere along the way that made you go, oh my gosh,
the
why am I
ones
doing
that this? When I heard that question, I was like, well, I mean, there aren't like super funny stories within the insurance agency, but when I was an adjuster, I was also younger, so maybe I had a better sense of humor back then. But I was assigned for a period of time to handle thefts, and as an adjuster, and thefts, as most people probably don't know, is there's an enormous amount of fraud in those claims. Probably 70 to 80% of car thefts have some element of fraud. At least they did back then. Now it's been, 20 years since, since I've been doing it. But at the time, that's what it was. So you'd have to go through this, long series of questions you'd record with the person. And the lady, they found her car. And so then you follow up, and usually they're happy when you find their car. This lady you could tell, was not happy that her car was found. And furthermore, was not happy that it could be repaired. And I'm sorry, the story was that she was in Loveland, which is Colorado, just a suburb out of Colorado, certainly a very nice suburb outside of Colorado. She said that she was pulled over on the side of the road, and guys had gotten out with guns and told her to get out of the car, which that seemed pretty implausible just right there. But okay, we find the car. It's not totaled. She, begrudgingly comes to pick it up from us. And funny thing is on her way home, she got hijacked again. And the second time, they did not find her car. So
you learned.
there were some crazy stories like that on a daily basis, for sure.
All that for a 1974 Pinto, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
High demand.
Wow.
That is funny. Well, I mean, those stories had to be at least entertaining as you look through them. But what was the deciding factor, Stephanie, in making you decide to change the path you were on? Like I said, you'd grown up in the insurance business and been around it most of your life, and really had a feel for that, and then decided to change course. What was kind of the start of that?
I think I've changed courses like twice. Once I was, an adjuster, and I went from being like W-2 to starting my own business. And that I clearly remember I was very frustrated in the corporate space. It seemed like I had a collection of the most terrible middle management bosses you could imagine. If you ever watched The Office, it was very similar to that. People don't believe me, but it was. One day at the job I worked for, AIG at the time, they wanted a talk like a pirate day. My husband still doesn't believe me that was what they wanted to implement on one day. So anyways, that, and, I remember sitting down with my boss at the time, and she said, "You're doing great. You're handling things well, and we'll give you a 2% raise." And I remember going home and talking to my dad, who was kind of a lifetime entrepreneur. And I said that, what am 2% raise for the rest of my life, and just sort of calculating it out and everything. And he goes, "Well, you have two choices. One, you can stay where you are, what you're going to get, or you can start out on your own, and, it's up to you what you achieve." And so I would say within 2 weeks, I put my notice in and started my business. And that was a blessing. I really loved being a owner of, a business. I was really fortunate in that, and also had my, definitely my dad, he passed away really suddenly. Actually, it was almost right when I had quit my regular job. He passed away, so he didn't really get to guide me in being an agent very much. But I did go back to his advice a lot on how he built his business. He would talk a lot of times, probably thought I wasn't listening, but I guess I was, because I picked up a lot. And so I did that, but I always loved real estate. I just really wasn't very educated in it. And then, in 2016, when I learned about syndications, I really went all in on that and realized, gosh, I think this is really my passion and what I'm meant to do. And so then that was, but I tell people I was 45 when that happened, and I sold my business and, and went along that path and have been the happiest I've ever been. I finally understand where, you work. I don't really have to work, but I love to work. And so it's a hard thing to describe to people, but I was happy before, but I'm at my happiest level now with what I'm doing.
That's great. When you jumped full into real estate there, did you start by doing, did you invest on the LP side or just educate yourself and jump right into the equity side of it, raising, or how did that come about?
Well, I had, before I jumped into it in 2005, I started investing in small single family homes, a few duplexes, things like that in Colorado. I didn't really have it, like I said, in education. I more was like, well, seems like a good area to buy in. And certainly they all did very well. But I think once I started working with the wealthy investors who I raised money with, I started noticing that they handled their money a lot different than, because my goal was, I'm going to buy these rentals, hold on to them for 30 years, till they're paid off, and then I'll just live off the rents. And I really noticed the wealthy people, they're using their money all the time, and it's always working for them, and they know, and they're getting a significant cash flow. And when I worked out, I had a lot of appreciation in my homes, but I was getting, $100, $200 a month in cash flow. So at the time I started raising money with my partner, in my mind my goal was for every property we closed, I would be an LP in there too. Mm-hmm. So I'm an LP and a GP and we just finished our 8th deal, and I sold my last property last April. And that's a big part of why I have the cash flow to retire at this point. But just it's really to do what the wealthy people do, look what they do and do it, but mostly just really understand the power of cash flow is, really, really huge. That's what I try to tell people about.
Tony Robbins and the Success Leaves Clues. That's, like I said, you got to observe what they were all doing that were successful in the financial realm, and, kind of copy that, or, have your own path that way too. That's great.
Yeah.
T. Harv Eker talks about that too. It's you see what rich people do. Well, do what rich people do. They move their money. They invest. They use leverage. So real quick, just go back. First, sorry to hear about your dad. Just as you were launching your firm, that's really unfortunate. But again, that's what I keep hoping with my kids, that some of the little sprinkles of knowledge I've dropped will take root and grow. And I've seen, I was a W-2 employee. I made the shift to being an entrepreneur, only a few years ago. And I've tried to pass some of that knowledge on, and I'm seeing some of it take root in my kids, but they're still early themselves.
But I guess one thing I'd just say about that is that that's not small what you're saying, because I think I go back to, where I am and the things I've done over my life. And I remember this was years ago when I started investing in single family homes. My one friend who had a regular 9-to-5 job, she was like, I don't know. How do you know how to do that, Stephanie? And I was like, well, I just kind of try to figure it out. And she's like, well, aren't you really scared that it'll be, a vacant or something? And we got more into talking, and I think I just saw my dad, just seeing him buy rental properties. And operate them as a landlord or starting his own business. And just seeing that that's a possibility puts a whole different frame in your kids' minds of what's possible, and not to be scared of it. And people that watch like their dad have a job from 9 to 5 their whole lives just can't imagine, really. So you are doing something.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And again, I think that you don't have to quit your day job to become a real estate investor and grow your wealth through real estate. And again, maybe you enjoy your job immensely. Hey, good for you. More power to you. But at the same point in time, do something on the side, invest along the way to, and partly what Bill and I have talked about in many of our episodes, we've had other guests on that have talked about it, is the concept of, it's called alternative asset investing. Wait a minute. I think real estate was here before stocks.
Yeah.
So
I hate that term.
Exactly. I hate that term too, because again, something tangible you can look at, touch, feel, hold, well, not hold, but anyway, but that, and especially as we're facing inflation, a real asset is what's going to appreciate with inflation. We can't control our stock investments at all. They're subject to the whims of the market, but at the same point in time, if you buy good fundamental real estate, it's going to increase in value over time. Yeah. And the rental income is going to be there as well. I had a similar approach where I first, bought a single family house, and then I did the math. I'm like, oh my gosh, passive income, $100 a month. Wow. I need a lot of houses. So that's why I made the shift over to multifamily. So I want to go back to one thing real quick. Talk like a pirate day.
Yes.
My God. So I just have a humble observation. So maybe if AIG had focused in the late 2010, 8, 9, 10 range on making money for their clients instead of talk like a pirate day, they might not have had so many problems.
Exactly.
Oh my Lord. Wow.
Yeah.
So Stephanie, as you were moving into your new endeavor, were there some obstacles you encountered along the way?
I think my biggest obstacle was I wanted to do everything myself. And that's, I think, comes from just, being an entrepreneur and business owner. So I looked by myself first. Actually, I did my first syndication by myself. And that one, that was in late 2018. That one really was hard. It was hard on me personally. It was hard. I mean, it was actually a fraternity house. So it was next to impossible to find financing for it. Long story short, I ended up closing on it, did all the inspections and everything like that, but there was still a hidden problem with one of the boilers. So I took it over when they were on break, and one of the pipes froze and burst. So we had a flood like within a couple of weeks of owning the property. Everything got resolved, everything was good, but the idea of me being in charge of everything, just, I knew I didn't want to do it. And a lot of the things I didn't like about the business, I didn't want to do. And maybe that's just being old enough to know what you like and you don't, but there were just a lot of things that I didn't like. So when I could focus on the capital raising, that's when I really became successful. Mm-hmm. And so my biggest, obstacle was, just trying to wrap my mind around finding a team and having a good team with the same values, which is another big thing. My partner and I wish I had said that we interviewed each other and knew right away, but we just happened to connect, and we really do have very similar values, which is huge in this industry.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Stephanie, as you launched into the syndication side of it, what do you recall what you felt like your first big victory was? Was it the first partnership deal you closed, or what do you recall?
Victory. probably the first investor that I got, that wasn't a family member. No, yeah, it just like felt like I had sold the property in the right way, and just there's so much learning that goes into it, and a lot of times you're just kind of thrown out there and trying to sell this great investment. And I always remember that first guy that took a chance on us, and we've had 8 deals together, and he's invested in 5 of them. So that
always speaks volumes too, right? Happy repeat customers. That's your best advertising on that.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's
great.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, Stephanie, in your syndication world and doing these deals in Florida, is there a humorous story you can share with us? Something funny along the way?
Oh man, do I? I mean, I have some. Before I met up with my partner again, I was really, it's hard to describe to people when you're in this business, the desire for you to get your first deal, like just the desire for it. And so I got one property under contract in Fort Myers, and I was told by, our software, this is a good area. It's kind of might be on the verge of not so good area. But I talked to someone who is from there, and they're like, yeah, that area is really changing and it's good. And put it under contract, went down there myself again there. And I didn't have my partner at the time. And we did an inspection, set up an inspection. It's hard to, there's black molds in almost all of the units. I got brought in by the inspector into one unit, and I'll never forget that. The guys, it was in around the vent system and everything like that. And I was talking to the tenant, and I was like, you need to call, the property manager, because, he was like, well, I just don't want to bother them. I was like, no, this is not a safe place for you to be. And I mean, just me being in there for 5 minutes, I had like a headache. There was, and then of course the different tenants had seen me out there, looking, inspecting the property, and a bunch of them like collected. And it really was kind of a bad area, to be honest. So one guy, he was up on the railing and said, hey, Blondie or whatever, why don't you come back like around 10 o'clock tonight, and you'll really see what goes on around here. And he opened the side of his jacket, and he had a gun. Ooh. And so, I got out of that one. But
your typical Class A plus property.
Yeah.
It was, it's sad in a way. It really makes you understand, like, some landlords, the way that they let their tenants live is just inexcusable. And I mean, just really eye-opening to see some of that, the way that some people live.
Bill and I looked at a property where he did a property tour, and it was unbelievable. The parking lot was torn up, just, and we asked the property manager, what they would do if they had some extra cash. They were going, well, I would fix the parking lot. I would renovate the units. And the one particular unit we walked in, Bill, what did we see there?
Yeah, there was a dead rat. This is they knew we were coming. The broker showed up with us. We did the tour, and the fridge was mixed out, huge hole in the wall behind it. It just looked abandoned, like somebody walked out, and there's a dead rat laying over in the corner. And we asked him about, like, this is one of the down units. Like, oh no, this one's rent ready. We just need to put a fridge in. we thought it was a down unit. He was going to, $25,000 for the rehab to fix this thing up, and that was their version of no, it's good. We'll sweep the rat up probably. But
oh my gosh,
yeah.
So a lot of interesting things.
we declined to pursue that one.
Right.
So yeah.
Yes, that's good.
Oh boy.
Well, Stephanie, where are you today in your real estate journey? as you're growing the business? And
that's a good question. I'm still not fully understanding where I'm going to go with it. I enjoy very much working with my partner, but I was approached almost, I don't know, maybe a month ago by a lady who was in my database, and she has a fintech company that she's she can't launch it because she needs her last bit of capital. And so she approached me about raising it. And I've been working with her and learning about her company and the story and everything. And it's definitely compelling enough that I'm going to do this raise for her. And so that's what I kind of see myself in the future is I can be pretty selective about who I work with and how, I choose to help. I think we'll probably get more into social. I'm trying to get more into like social and impact investing a little bit more for myself and to help as far as raising money. So, but definitely real estate, it will always be, the train that got me where I am. So I'll always have, money in real estate, and I understand it, but I think I always like to learn. And, once you start to have more money, you want to be able to, have an impact with your money too, to help people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Nice.
Great.
Good.
Yeah.
So Stephanie, is there anything you do? Are you involved in any kind of a charitable work in terms of trying to give back to perhaps the community, some cause that you like?
I am, I've been a part of the Rotary, and that's something that this year I'm trying to look into some other groups that I can become involved with. I love, children's groups. I have an 8-year-old, and so I'm real passionate about, with Rotary, we get school supplies for kids, we get jackets for them in the winter, just things like that. To me, when the people live in America or live here in Denver, and you can impact their lives in some way, that's really important to me. So I've been trying to look at other organizations to get involved with. And I, like with my school, I volunteered to help fundraise for it because I have those skills. But I've always loved the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and that actually probably goes back to my dad. He was one of his businesses was he had a few Dairy Queens, and that was their group that the Dairy Queen, I think they still do to this day, raise money for them. And I love the concept of that, helping children that are very sick with a wish. And so I would like to get involved a little bit more with the fundraising there as well.
That's great. Yeah, we very strongly believe in giving back ourselves. We've been fortunate in so many ways that we do think it is a responsibility to help others in some way. And that takes many different shapes and forms. But again, it is important we believe to give back. So good.
For sure.
Very nice.
Well, Stephanie, what's something you've recently implemented in your business to help you grow? It could be anything from networking, CRM, masterminds. Is there anything particularly you can point to that's helped you?
I believe so strongly in mentors, and I've had the most wonderful mentors ever. And this year I was sort of just looking at where I was lacking in my business, which is I really have never put a funnel in my in my database, and I came across a guy online that I started talking to, and I'm in a 12-week class with him right now, and just great content about creating content in a very, easier way. I have an intern in this right now, actually, who's going to start helping me with my social media and stuff like that. I think the thing that's the hardest in this business is the content. And I guess you don't really think that when you raise money that content production is going to be very important, but it is. And I'm also going to be starting a podcast within the next month or so. So I'll probably reach back out to you, see if you guys want to come back on or come on to it. But yeah, I think that's been a great way to reach people, is through podcasting, the best actually way. So I have gotten my fears out of the way, and I'm ready to jump in with that.
That's great. Very cool. Absolutely. I mean, and from the investing point and the investors on board, I mean, they invest with people they know, like, and trust, right?
Yeah.
And the key part of that, first, they have to know you, right? So like you said, the platform to be able to get out there, add value, and just, have a way to interact with potential investors, and, let them know what you're up to. It's critical. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and quite honestly, it's also a great way to give back, just in terms of knowledge sharing. That's we run 2 monthly groups as well as doing the podcast, and we feel that's important, because a lot of people were very gracious as we were getting going on the apartment thing, to with some of their time and ideas and thoughts, and we think it's important to as another way to give back too. So yeah, excellent. Okay. So Stephanie, as you've been successful in the insurance world, now you're doing great things in the syndication world. What advice would you give to somebody who's considering making a path change?
To do it. I know it sounds simple, but the biggest part or the saddest part actually for me, and when I went through this boot camp, there was probably 100 of us that started at the same time in the training. And I think I'm the only one that I've seen at the last event we were all at. And I bet maybe 1% to 5% make it, but I think they don't make it. People that don't make it aren't acting. They're talking, they're analyzing, they're doing all other things, but to be successful in anything that you do, you have to act, take the steps forward and do it. And you're going to make mistakes. I think I heard that. I'm sure it's not rocket science, but everybody makes mistakes. It's what you learn from the mistakes. And I definitely, as a capital raiser, you try lots of different things, and you're like, okay, well, no, that obviously didn't work. Let's move on to something that does. And that just applies in every industry that you're in, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we talk about this all the time too. Like, there's almost two ends of the spectrum on that. You have, and just for real estate, for an example, there's so many things within real estate, right? You have like house flipping, you have notes, you have multifamily, commercial, retail. I mean, all different aspects of that. You could dive deep into. So it's almost like the people go to their local RIA meeting, and it's a shiny penny syndrome, right? The speaker that month has something really exciting to say about note buying, and they'll get all excited. They would take his, the course, and then next month it's something else, and they never have time to go deep on. So they just have kind of a wide, which I think is okay in the beginning to get just feel what's out there. But then once you decide on something, I think it's critical to go deep and really develop the knowledge base in that particular field. And then on the far side of that, people, I think at some point too, depending on their personality, you almost have the analysis paralysis, that you'll never know everything until you take a step forward, right? I mean, until you actually get into deal. You don't know what you don't know. I mean, and you won't know it until you come across it, but you'll have, enough of a base you can solve the problems, but you have to, like you said, at some point actually take action. You can't forever just be underwriting deals and waiting for the perfect thing that may never happen.
Yeah, exactly. I love that analysis paralysis. I use that all the time. But yeah, I mean, that goes for anything, just even investing. People that can't pull the trigger on investing. It's, at some point you have to take that, do your due diligence, but then take the first step to do it.
Yeah. So Stephanie, what's the best way for someone to reach out to you and learn more about what you do?
Yeah, probably going to my website, which is it's www.erbewealth.com, and it's Erbe Wealth. I named the company after to give a nod to my dad, and Erbe is the German word for legacy. So
Nice.
I want to help people build a legacy of wealth, for sure.
That's great.
I like that. That's a great name. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Well, Stephanie, I'd like to thank you for being on the Road Less Traveled show today. Really enjoyed the conversation and wish you continued success.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Stephanie, thank you for being on. Really appreciate you taking time to be with us. And we'd also like to thank our listeners. Please continue to give us a 5-star rating so we can bring you more great content like our guest today, Stephanie Walter. And please also be sure, we want to thank our sponsor, Park Capital Partners, that sponsors this program. We also want to remind everybody about the Park Capital Partners Value Add Fund that is out and available today. It's a 506C fund. And then finally, that we have as an additional way we give back is through the Park Capital Partners Foundation. It is a 503C nonprofit that is designed to help to honor our investors when they invest with us by giving back to a charity of their choice. So thanks again, folks, for tuning in. Thank you again, Stephanie. And remember, folks, the road less traveled may be calling you. We recommend that you listen and take action. Thanks for joining.